refugee, migrant, expat, asylee, immigrant. The vocabulary describing people on the move is both technical and often just hard to understand. With us today is TJ Rogers, Development Director at Freedom House Detroit. He will share with us the mission and day-to-day work for an organization that is a rare safe haven for persecuted people who have no other place to turn to. TJ, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you, Alan. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Now, you're a kid from Buffalo, New York. How does one end up all the way across several lakes in Michigan?
Yeah, short, funny story, kind of. So I graduated college and was looking for opportunities after and applied to a program called Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And so that was a one-year gig. I ended up extending, doing it for 2, and now here I am almost 6.5, 7 years later, now as a development director. So it's been a journey.
So what drew you into immigration work? What was there about that appealed to you?
So I had an experience volunteering during college in New York City, working beside individuals who were experiencing homelessness, and was really molded by that experience. I learned that there was a refugee shelter in Buffalo called Viva La Casa. So I started volunteering there for what wound up to be about 1.5 years until I then moved to Detroit. And so it was really that initial experience in New York City that led me to Vive, experience with individuals from around the world there who were indeed seeking safety as well, that again opened my mind to realities and populations that I previously never would have known. Yeah.
Sure. Now, in that early experience, was there one contact, one person who had just a particularly moving story that made you think, yeah, I want to do this?
From New York City?
Yes. From New York City.
Yes, from New York City, yes. Actually, we were visiting a all women's shelter one day, and there was a woman whose name I won't share, who's actually from Iraq, and she herself was seeking safety from persecution and recognizing that there are very few service providers who tend to do unique services because most service providers don't know who an asylum seeker is and therefore what the needs are. I was fortunate enough to meet her, learn a bit about her experience, and understand that this is a need and an area that I feel like can be of some benefit.
Yeah, it just really moved you. Now you've been at Freedom House since 2011, but the organization has actually been around for a number of decades, 1983, I believe.
Yes.
What was the genesis of the organization?
So yeah, in 1983, there were a group of first responders here in Detroit who saw that there was a population of newcomers growing rapidly here in the community. And so these were namely individuals who were fleeing conflict and persecution from Central and South America, particularly the Civil War in El Salvador at the time. And these individuals were coming to Detroit, ultimately wanting to go to Windsor to seek refugee status. And so this small core of first responders recognized that there was a service gap amongst the traditional service providers here in Detroit, and thus the Detroit-Windsor Refugee Coalition was born. And now today, in 2018, we're proudly known as Freedom House Detroit, and for 35 years, we're still the only organization in the country that provides shelter, legal aid, and a full scope of comprehensive social services to asylum seekers and victims of human trafficking at no charge. So very proud of the work that we do because it's needed, as we know, in this particularly challenging time, these challenging times that we're living in.
Well, and hopefully after people across the country see this conversation, hear this interview, they might be motivated to organize havens, because clearly the need is great and you're doing good work, but you're just one location.
Yes, absolutely. That is always the goal. Throw a few statistics at you. Every June, the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees releases a global trends report on World Refugee Day, actually June 20th. And so the data I'm sharing with you, admittedly, is from 2016 because 17 is not out yet. In 2016 alone, there were over 262,000 individuals who had newly submitted applications for asylum in the United States.
And as I alluded in my introduction, the jargon can get very technical, and people who are not working with any kind of newcomer communities really don't understand. Tell us a little bit, how do we distinguish asylum seekers from, say, refugees?
Yes, that is a great question. Great question. Thank you for asking. So by definition, they're technically the same person. Refugee is really an umbrella term. And so by definition, these are individuals who are outside his or her country of origin, and due to a well-founded fear of persecution, or in the case of our residents and many others who are fleeing persecution, history of persecution, that they have experience that's been inflicted upon them by their own government or another group or entity that their government cannot or will not control. And that persecution is on account of one of 5 very specific categories. So it can be on account of one's race or ethnicity, their nationality, political opinion, religious affiliation, or membership within a particular social group. And so the last one, I'm not a lawyer, and so I always say in lay people's terms, it's kind of a catch-all category.
Sure.
So these would be people who are fleeing persecution, perhaps on account of their HIV/AIDS status. Their tribal status, their profession, and increasingly their membership, either known or perceived, within the LGBT community or allyship. And so a resettled refugee, as we know in this administration, we're talking about wanting to admit more individuals. As this administration is trying to restrict and limit the number of people that we let in.
Right.
And so settled refugees are people who essentially go through the process of proving they meet this definition before they arrive in the United States. So they've worked through the government systems, et cetera, the security measures, prove they meet that definition, and then they're admitted to the United States with this protected designated status that by extension means they're immediately eligible to work and they're eligible for state and federal assistance. Whereas this is where the distinction comes in. An asylum seeker is somebody who is on our soil seeking protection while they're here. And so until their case is adjudicated and they're granted this status, they're not entitled to state or federal assistance. And in most cases for Freedom House, our residents are not eligible to earn an income 14 or 15 months into their stay at our program.
So these people are really in a profound state of limbo.
Absolutely, in so many ways, and but they're not just fleeing that persecution, that trauma. With that, they're also leaving behind their culture, their education, their professional experience, their language, so on and so forth. And so when they come here, to be denied the ability to earn an income for so long when there's so much untapped skills and potentials that they could be contributing to our community is in my personal terms, very dehumanizing. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're probably also fleeing in many cases without records and documents showing that they have credentials and education, et cetera.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're fleeing for your life in the middle of the night, you're not thinking, oh, let me make sure I bring my degree, right? So yes, that's a challenge. And then on the flip side, even if they are fortunate enough to bring their degree, what happens is they have to be able to communicate with their embassy, this education department in their home country, to essentially have that degree accredited, if you will, in the United States. But until, again, the asylum case is adjudicated, which today is between 3 and 5 years in length, you're not able to be in touch with the education embassy in your country because you're seeking protection from that very government, right? So you see this interesting dichotomy that this population is forced to deal with.
And as I'm listening to this story, to this description, I'm feeling the cumulative weight of just fact upon fact upon fact. So I'm persecuted, I'm chased away, I'm landed in a new place, new language, new culture, and I can't work, and for so many of us, our work is a self-expression of our productivity and our self-worth. So I'm just imagining, I just want to crawl in a hole and hide.
And then, you know what? Let me tell you one more thing that is a reality. And I hate to share all this because I don't want to paint it all as doom and gloom, because that's not the only experience that I hope that I have an opportunity to share with you in this interview. But on the flips, or the other additional thing is, in many cases, the individual who is fleeing this persecution traditionally is the person who was their primary income person who brought in the income in the household back home. Because in many countries around the world, there's still this belief that, in America, the streets are paved with gold. And so
not true, but relatively speaking.
Right. Sure. Of course. Yes. Yeah. So it's just, hurdle upon hurdle upon hurdle, and the resiliency of this population is unparalleled.
So now we've painted a relatively dark picture.
Yeah.
Where does Freedom House come in, and what sorts of services, what sorts of relief are you providing?
Everything. So as basic as shelter, food, clothing, and all the personal amenities that you and I have used since we woke up this morning, right? The bed that we were in, the linens on that bed, access to a shower, health and beauty items, etc., transportation to get you to your workplace, me to my workplace and home, etc., right? All of those most basic things, in addition to other broader categories, because we could talk for a long time about the extensive services that we deliver, but healthcare, so both medical and behavioral health, recognizing that 98% of our residents are survivors of torture. So of course we want them to heal from the physical wounds of their trauma, but also be able to link them with the necessary professionals who can help them work through learn coping strategies, work through the symptoms of their PTSD, the survivor's guilt, etc., that quite frankly most of them will carry with them for the rest of their life.
Sure.
Right?
Those scars run deep.
Absolutely.
And as you're going through this list upon detailed list, I'm thinking belonging to a culture has so much intricacy, just the level of details and all of the minutia that you have to be aware of, be comfortable with, understand. And this is just all brand new to them under the cloud of fleeing. We're running out of time, and I want to ask you a couple more questions. First of all, who are your partners in the community, people who are working to support you?
Yes, we have many. Prosperous Detroit, it's an entrepreneurial training program. Southwest Economic Solutions, they help with GED and ESL.
So important.
Yes, very important. Covenant Community Care, they provide some pediatric care, pediatric care and dental care. St. Francis Cabrini Clinic, they do most of our primary care. Access in Dearborn, they do a lot of our behavioral health as well as some behavioral health as well as medical care. And the list goes on and on. There are many other individuals and partners. We could be here forever if we go to the minutiae, because we've got big organizations, families, and individuals who are professionals who contribute their skills on a pro bono basis as well.
So segueing to my next question was, how can people reach out and help you? So obviously they can send you buckets of money. What is the website that they can get in touch with you with?
Yes, so our website is freedomhousedetroit.org.
Okay.
All spelled out, no dots, no dashes. We have Facebook. Our Facebook is facebook.com/freedomhousedetroit. And we also have Twitter, @freedomhousedet. And so on both of those pages, we post community events, outreach, happenings on the house, as well as appeals for specific needs that we may have on a day-to-day basis, or volunteer opportunities. Because, as I've referenced several times throughout this interview, we're proud to be the only organization to offer this comprehensive approach. But the only way we're able to do that, to offer that, is because of our community supporters, which is not only organizational partners, which are a huge part of our program, but also the contributions of individuals. The moral of the story is it takes a community.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking that you can have organizational support, but in a lot of cases for these folks, they really need just to see another kind face and to create a sense of relatedness. Like, okay, this culture is strange, this setting is strange, the winters, heaven knows, are unbearable. But there's this kind person I see once or twice a week, and that gives me hope, that human contact.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of it too, is the potential to feel like you are forgotten, like the world forgets that you even exist, is very real. And so we really count on individuals and invite people to come visit us in the house and meet us at our foundation, at our home, and help reassure that we see you, we welcome you, we value you, and we're happy to have you here amongst us in our community.
Awesome. We're going to have to wrap up in just a second, but when we spoke earlier, you said something very profound when you quoted Jack Lessenberry. And he said, Freedom House is the most American organization there is. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. When he said that at our annual dinner a few years ago, it really struck me to the core in a good way. What he said really crystallizes what I believe Freedom House to be, and really what Freedom House has meant to me, in that every day I get to go to work and stand shoulder to shoulder with people who back home are on the front lines of advocating for democracy and justice and human rights and freedom. Our founders today would be considered an asylum seeker. And so, again, when we think about that, it really, is a cause for pause and reflection and evaluate where we are today in this current political environment with this administration. And, we really need to be asking ourselves, who are we? What are our values? And pushing the boundaries to make sure that we uphold what's written and inscribed at the base of the Statue of Liberty in welcoming those who are yearning to breathe free.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to leave it there. That's going to have to be the last word. But this has been a really inspiring conversation, TJ. I want to wish you continued success in your work. Keep going forward, and we'll look to get as many people connected with you as we can.
Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. If you're watching on TV, stay tuned for our following segments on information and humor. If you're watching us on the internet, I hope you will check out our other conversations with the amazing community members working to make these United States a more welcoming place.